This AI agent is supposed to listen, understand, and respond. But watch how much patience it actually requires. Now, this isn't a bug, it's a design reality. Seed Studio, they sent me this device. But this is, of course, as I mentioned in the last 2 episodes, the unboxing and the online experience, this is a fully independent UX case study. Now, this is part 3 of the SenseCAP Watcher series, and we have the full UX breakdown. Now, today isn't about whether AI is impressive. We talk about that in another video series, and you can find that, of course, in the description and on the channel. What this video is about is understanding what this product is and what it isn't, and the kind of experience it actually creates in day-to-day use. So let's set expectations properly. The Watcher is not polished, it's not consumer ready, certainly is an AI assistant. You see, it's a language model, and the language model is basic. The voice interaction is inconsistent. Responses can be slow or misinterpreted.
I will call you Watcher, not Water.
Got it, my name is Water, not water, but water. I'll be your calm ripple in the storm. What's on your mind?
You're not listening to me properly.
I hear you, and I'm truly sorry if I misunderstood. Can you please clarify what you'd like to call me? I'm here to listen carefully and get it right.
I will call you Watcher, W-A-T-C-H-E-R.
Thank you for your patience. I hear you clearly now. You'd like to call me Watcher. I embrace that name.
And you have to be patient. And patience in UX terms, is never neutral. It always filters the audience. Now, in the clips you're seeing here, the Watcher struggles with interpreting spoken language, understanding phrasing consistently, responding within a comfortable time window. But you see, what this introduces is what I'd like to describe as, well, patience tax. Users must slow down when they speak, and they must speak carefully as well. They have to wait longer and sometimes repeat themselves. Now, for mainstream users, this is going to feel broken as an experience, hands down. But for technically minded users, this actually feels unfinished. But the potential is shapeable. In fact, on the product page of the SenseCAP Watcher website, it talks specifically to developers and people who want to innovate and problem solve, that it opens up a world of possibilities of what this product can do. In fact, if you want to see a bit more on that, watch the previous episode of this series. The UX principle that we can look at here is visibility of system status. When a system is slow and quiet, users assume failure, even when the system is technically working. Now, this distinction, it does matter. These limitations are not accidental. The Watcher is deliberately designed as a foundation, not a finished assistant. The LLM layer is intentionally lightweight. The expectation is that developers and advanced users they'll naturally try to extend it, refine the behavior, swap the models, and tune it for specific environments. In fact, as we mentioned, the product page and the marketing specifically encourages that for this segment of users. Now, from a product strategy perspective, well, that's valid. But from a UX perspective, it does introduce risk because the product, it looks consumer ready. It's solid as a product. It's solid in build as well. However, it behaves like a development platform. The Watcher has a face. It speaks. It listens. Now, those strong cues imply assistant, but the behavior says tool or prototype. Now, when appearance and behavior, they simply don't align, what this does is that this starts to erode trust within the mind of the user. Now, users don't blame the AI. They actually start to blame the experience. Now, a principle I like to refer to here is an obvious one. Users bring expectations from other devices they already know. You guessed it, Jacob's law. And this is whether the product is intended for that comparison or not. It doesn't matter because they will have something that they will call familiarity, and they'll expect that from the same or a similar product. Now, audio interaction is one of the hardest UX problems to solve because in real use, the watcher shows a few things. It shows missed words, it shows misinterpretation, it also shows delayed responses as well. Now, this forces users to adapt their behavior to the system. Now, of course, this is acceptable to technical users or developers or tinkerers, but it's unacceptable to the casual or mainstream user. Now, a UX principle here that will make the most sense in parallel is matching between system and the real world. Now, system should adapt to people naturally. That's how it should be designed. True and good UX does that. It shouldn't require people to adapt to them. But this takes us into our next finding, and this one is really key. Now, battery life is another critical constraint. Now, in practice, the watch's battery is actually very limited. In fact, it's so limited that the device quickly defaults into standby. In fact, just within our conversation right now, it's already on standby. And if you noticed at the beginning of the video, it was just turned on. Now, this changes how the product can be realistically used by default. Now, this is not a carry it with you all day kind of device where it's always on, always listening, always helping you. For any kind of continuous or reliable use, it really needs to be connected to power via a cable. And that's when it can stay on for much, much longer. Now, this is because it's an extensible product. Now, I'm confident that, this kind of behavior can be modified by advanced users. So this isn't really a blocker for that segment of users. But out of the box, the mainstream or the regular casual user, the UX clearly signals this is a stationary tethered device. But this is not a flaw, right? So this is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a usage constraint that has to be communicated clearly for good UX. Now, one area where the watcher does deserve credit is its physical interaction behavior. That's really good, in fact. Now, recent AI devices have experimented with novel controls, such as novel ways in which the wheels exist on the physical product, gestures even with your hand and so forth, and unconventional inputs. Now, some of those ideas look innovative, looks really cool, looks like it's worth investing, like you could be the first to have it, but feel very unfamiliar and awkward in practice. Now, the watcher does well to avoid that trap. The physical behavior is conventional, predictable, familiar. It has a familiar flywheel. You turn it clockwise or anti-clockwise. The natural thing is the volume goes up or down. If you decide to long press it, the device turns on. If you long press it again whilst the device is on, it turns off. In fact, that kind of button familiarity is very similar to how you power on Bluetooth devices. So again, going back to another law or principle that is very, very familiar, because you see, this kind of familiarity, it really does matter. Now, what are we talking about here by principle? We're going to look back at Jacob's law again, because leaning into patterns people already understand means that the designers can reduce that cognitive load, even while the underlying system may remain complex all the same. Now, when you combine everything we've seen so far, the AI maturity, the audio friction, the battery constraints, the extensibility, the intended audience really starts to become quite clear. The AI watcher is not a consumer AI companion, certainly not for the mainstream or casual user who wants to just grab and go and then assume that the product will replace all use of mobile phones. This product right here is a platform. It's really designed for developers, tinkerers, experimenters, people who enjoy shaping systems. Now, for this audience, the limitations that we've just talked about are acceptable, perhaps even expected. Now, for everyone else, well, they're blockers. Now, even with these constraints, there are strong, deliberate design decisions with this product. Now, open source foundations, expandability, physical and digital sustainability, privacy first potential through local control. See, all of these things are possibilities that the user can decide to take advantage of. These are choices that give the product longevity, but only if the expectations are set honestly. Now, this is where UX leadership does become critical. Now, if you're listening, Mr. Eric Pan, CEO of Seed Studio, then this is the part where actually you will want to pay attention. Because products like this live or die on expectation management. If it's a platform, well, say so. If it requires patience, design for patience. If it's not mobile first, don't imply that it is. UX isn't about hiding constraints. It's about making constraints legible. This is the point that I'm making here. Now, the SenseCAP Watcher isn't failing, not even close, but it is constrained by design, by maturity, and by intent. Now, for the right audience, this can be a very powerful foundation. In fact, one that will give the product so much of a longer product lifespan. But for the wrong audience, it will feel frustrating. Now, the difference isn't technology, no, it's expectation. If this kind of honest UX analysis is useful, explore the rest of the case study series. You can do that in the description. Now, let me ask you, when an AI product clearly isn't consumer ready, should UX smooth over the gaps or make limitations obvious from day one? Well, drop your perspective in the comments, because this is where real products meet real expectations. Stay present, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.